Hello there, it's Pastor Drew, and I'm coming to you on behalf of Faith Reformed Church with what I'm calling a State of the Church address here at the beginning of 2024, just like the president or the governor might do to say the state of the state or the state of the union. I like to do this every once in a while, a little State of the Church address, because I notice that people who are deeply invested in Faith Reformed Church still only are able to see one little slice, maybe their small group or some ministry they're involved in, and then what they see on Sunday mornings, but can't always see the big picture. So sometimes I like to give one of these little updates that hopefully captures some of the big picture. So thank you for clicking on this. Thank you for taking the time to watch it. I can't tell in advance how long it's going to take, but it'll take a little while. You are encouraged to speed up the video if you want. And you're also encouraged to show me a little bit of grace, because I'm not going to film this multiple times. And unlike presenting in person, where I can make up for some imperfections and answer immediate questions where things aren't clear, you're just going to have to put up with some of those imperfections, because I want to record it via video here and distribute it this way so that people can watch it when they have time to watch it. But here's what I'm going to cover. I'm going to cover some of the things that that I observe that I just really love about this place and these people and who we are as the body of Christ. I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened this past fall, including the departure of Stephanie and some of the transition with regard to music leadership. I want to talk about what's happened so far in the ministry year, because we're about halfway through our ministry year, and in the process, I'll be able to talk about what's coming up in the future in terms of discipleship, outreach, community events, that sort of thing. And then, I want to talk a little bit about our campus that we've got here and some things that have happened and will happen in the near future. So that's some of the stuff that I want to talk about. But first I just want to say, man, it is an honor and a privilege to serve as lead pastor here at Faith Reformed. I am pretty excited about a number of things that are happening. The level of engagement with, our missions team, who had a 2-hour meeting today, which, of course, as you're watching this, it's no longer today. But anyway, they're dedicated. There's some things coming up with missions, all the ways that we're involved with outreach, whether that be Safe Harbor and community meals and our ministry partners here around the campus, all the ways that people are engaged in discipleship, whether that be through their small groups or Bible studies or the Pilgrim Kingdom Journey process, or just what happens on Sunday mornings, all the ways people are engaged with that, or the way in which people just engage the life together in general. I think we're pushing more and more and more toward a healthy environment, and I know that has to start with me and other leaders like me. But I feel like everybody's headed in that direction. And what do I mean by that? I mean by our capacity to be curious rather than being judgmental, or be curious rather than being presumptive, and go and speak to people directly rather than speak around people or behind people or make assumptions, and just try to have the most healthy atmosphere as possible. And part of that health is that desire to grow, that desire to be more intimate with God. I sense that from everybody. Everybody wants to be more intimate with God and have their faith permeate all the different aspects of their lives and the way in which they make decisions in the places where they live, work, and play. So I just get excited about that. I get excited when I see the beloved community in action, which especially this past December has been in vivid effect, because we've seen people like John Morris and Karen Wheelinga with cancer diagnoses. We've seen Ginny Viola's now invited hospice care in, and we've seen families like the Wafters, or we've seen Ann Chenard now has had a different stage of what's happening with her MDS. And in the midst of all of that, it's been amazing to see the body of Christ circle around those people and want to support those people. And so I'm just mindful of that and how beautiful it is to watch that happen. And I'm mindful that there's other people that are slipping through the cracks and not getting as much attention, especially some of our families that are helping to take care of their family members who have dementia. And I'm mindful of that. And you're probably mindful of other people that you might be thinking of that are slipping through the cracks, not getting as much attention as some other people in terms of that pastoral care. What can we all do to reach out and surround everybody with the level of care we've surrounded some of the people with? But man, on the whole, I'm just excited about all the different things that are happening, and I could name much more now, name some of it as we go along through this process, but I just want to say that right up front. But then, I want to talk about the state of the church in this general way, and how am I going to talk about the state of the church without talking one of the big things that happened this past fall, and that was the departure of our worship director, music director, Stephanie Wesley. The first thing I want to say I could say lots of things about that, but I'm just going to say a few things about it. The first thing I want to say about it is that, as I said to the people on December 3rd and December 10th and December 17th, the people who stuck around for conversations about this during the learning hour, I apologized for the ways in which I handled that poorly. And I'm very pleased to be able to tell you that I got back together with Stephanie even last week and was able to apologize to her directly about the ways that I handled it poorly, and she received that with a ton of grace. And that was a good conversation. But I just want to own the fact that I handled a number of things poorly, including some of the ways in which it was communicated. And like I said to the people who stuck around during the learning hour, I didn't wake up one day and say, man, I just want this to be handled poorly. I wanted this to go awkwardly. I want this to, I didn't wake up with that at all. I'm wanting to do the best I can by Stephanie and by everybody else. And you just see some of the imperfections in me, and I'm just trying to own some of that. And if you want to talk to me more about that, as some people have had the opportunity to do, I'm still, I'm right here. I'm open. Feel free to come and talk to me about any of that. And in the meantime, I just want to say, I got some notes down here about what I want to say. First of all, thank you for acknowledging Stephanie in all the ways that you did. I think she felt really well loved on her way out, so I want to say that. So kudos to this community, great community. And I also want to say, if you're still wondering what happened here, what happened? I think there's lots of things that could be said, but the easiest way to summarize it is what I said to the people who stuck around during the learning hour in December, is just that the easiest way to describe it is just that Stephanie and I were not very often on the same page. And I could give specific instances of that if you come and talk to me. I don't want to get all into it right now, but I think a lot of people can relate to that experience, whether with a coworker or with a family member, where, man, it just feels tough for us to get on the same page, and just how much work that requires. And a lot of you have said, hey, I didn't experience that on a Sunday morning. It seemed like you guys were simpatico and all that. And I would say, yeah, that makes sense, because a lot of times we were simpatico. And I think we both try to do our jobs with such excellence that of course I think it came across that way. Unless you were looking for stuff, you wouldn't have seen the ways in which maybe we weren't on the same page, but it showed up in other places. So that's what I just want to say, and feel free to reach out to me. I've reached out to some people, other people have reached out to me. I've had lots of great conversations. Again, all the more reason that I'm proud of the way that this community operates. But yeah, I'm still available. Let me know. And of course, her departure leaves a little bit of a void, and we're grateful for Scott Bills and the way that he stepped in to be a point person and help rally the people that are in the band and to do some things. And of course, we've had Ben Whipple fill in on a couple of Sundays. A lot of people have asked about Ben, and of course, we've had some conversations with Ben. I've had many conversations with Ben, and here's what I want to say. At this point, here's what's happening with Ben. Ben is going to become our official interim music leader starting January the 28th, Sunday, January the 28th, all the way through to the end of May. And he is not currently interested in being our full-time music leader, but very interested in being our interim leader, and we're excited to have him do that. So he will do that 3 or 4 times a month. There will be one time a month when he doesn't do it. But so he's going to be our interim leader. Many thanks to Scott Bills, and Scott Bills will continue to help be a point person that helps rally the band on those other Sundays when Ben is not leading. And in the meantime, we do have a search team that's trying to figure some things out. But I want to say one other thing about the Whipple family. You've certainly met Ben and Janet, and Janet will probably be, I'm going to say some things whether Janet likes it or not. In protection of Janet, I just want to let you know a little bit about that might be obvious to you. Just that, Janet's connection to our church is through Ben, and Ben being hired here over last summer to be an interim leader, and now being, hired to be another interim leader. And one of the things that we can do to help Janet is just to respect Janet for Janet. And so when you're talking with Janet, ask Janet about Janet. Don't ask Janet about Ben. So really simple, just a little helpful thing that will be really helpful to just value Janet for who Janet is, and can be just a really great thing for her. So that's all I want to say about that. We do have a search team that's finishing up a revised job description and some things about what we believe about worship, and be able to put that together so that we can put that out there for other people who might be interested in the position. We'll try to keep you updated as we go along in that process. And speaking of updates related to staff, if you haven't heard yet, Vicky has drawn down her hours and become a little bit less of an office manager, and mostly focused on some bookkeeping and administration. And that's all part of her working toward phasing toward retirement. Her and Ben are getting to that age, and so just wanted to give you that little update about Vicky. So there's a few things. Now I want to talk about and again, with any of these things, you can come and ask me questions, email me, text me, talk to me. But I want to talk a little bit about the ministry year itself. As you know, we've been focusing on story. Thank you for your willingness to put up with, a lot of scripture to intake every Sunday in the fall as we looked through these holy threads. I'm grateful for those of you that are participated in the storytelling workshops and the other things we've done around storytelling. We certainly could do more around some of that, and I've had some of those requests. I'm mindful of that. Just feel like I'm being stretched in a lot of different places and haven't been able to come up with what's necessary for that. I do want to just give a voice of praise for those groups that are taking the time to tell their stories in their group. We've given people this story format, the Post-it note story format that Drew put back on display, Drew Peterson that is, back in September. And the groups that have done that, including my small group, really, really good just to learn what God has done in other people's lives. And we know each other pretty well in my small group, and yet there's so much we just don't know about all that God's done in our lives, because we never just take the time to tell the whole story. And so what a blessing to be able to tell those stories in our small group, which consists of 7 different couples, which some people want to know about that. Hey, what's happening for couples your age? Well, that's one of the things. And Drew Peterson has invited a ton of different people, not only his small group, but a ton of newer couples into his group, and sometimes have as many as 9 couples showing up in their group, which they meet during the learning hour, which is kind of innovative. And they've been telling stories to each other and enjoying that process. And one of the things that has then helped to create is that all those families, all their kids also then attend the elementary learning hour and the high school learning hour, high school, middle school learning hour. So there's fun opportunities for discipleship there. And this is the first request I want to make. I want to make multiple requests along the way during this State of the Church address. But we could really use other people who could be a partner in ministry. That's the way I want to think about it. A partner in ministry who could help with the kids' ministry. Andrew's been looking for people. Should put broad invitations out and specific invitations out, but we could still just use people who are just deeply invested in that next generation. And so, yeah, we've got a preschool through first grade class and a second grade through fifth grade class, and could just use more people who want to be dedicated to those people. And I know that some of you can provide huge testimonies about how you walked every week with certain kids for certain age groups, and now you're seeing them as teenagers or college kids, and you got to be invested in that time period when they were of a certain age. It's a holy privilege to be able to do that, and I wonder if you'd be willing to, and if so, reach out to Andrea. So Drew Peterson is inviting all these people into his group, and then of course that creates a wonderful problem. Hey, how are we going to really disciple all these kids during the learning hour? So you could be a part of it. You could be a part of it. There will be more about story as we go forward, including the story of the 75 years of Faith Reformed Church. So hopefully you're thinking toward May 18 and 19, special event on Saturday, May 18, Sunday morning, May 19. We're hoping to celebrate our 75th anniversary, because the original group of three couples, three couples, couple of families, started the church in June of 1949. And so we're coming up on 75 years. Speaking of people who have been around a little while, I want to talk about a dynamic that's coming up here in the spring. And that's this, that as we look forward, here's one of the things that's going to happen. More and more of our retired people are choosing to go south for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, even 6 months at a time. And so because of that, a number of them are going to be gone here coming up here in February and bleeding into March. And then on top of that, we've got 9 people, the Clovers, Anderson Wagenschutzes, De Kuipers, Knowles, and Leslie Cuppet. They're all going with World Renew for 3 weeks to Sarasota, Florida, starting in the middle of February. So they too, even though they're not snowbirding it in a traditional way, they're doing it in a really missional way. And so they'll be gone. And so when you add that to the people who left months ago, like the Campers and Whitavans and Nelsons and Broomers, and then the people who just left after Christmas, like the and Barb Bloom back there, and Jerry Jr. and Sherry Van Dyke, and Whitcops, and some other people that I'm not mentioning. All that to say that in the coming Sunday, and then just by way of family update, I think it's good to name some of those people, just so you know, like, hey, where'd they go? Well, they flew south. You might be wondering some of the same things about people who moved. You know, we know Ron and Nancy Stevens moved over the summer. Dave and Sally Meyer moved in early September there. And the Connors moved up to the UP here recently, and they've dropped in more recently, but just some little family updates that feel like a good thing to insert in the state of the church. But all that to say that this is only my prediction. I could be totally wrong, but if you combine all of that with the fact that families are really busy and sometimes only attending half the time, I think some of the attendance on Sundays in February is going to feel a little light. Some of you got an impression of that this past Sunday with the snowfall, and from what I hear, the attendance was kind of light. Even I stayed an extra day with Claire in Pittsburgh because, hey, I didn't want to drive back Saturday during the snowstorm. All that to say that it's going to feel kind of light. And here's what I want to ask about that. When we notice that attendance is kind of light, I wonder if we could grow in our awareness of our initial response, because I think our response reveals something about our mental model of church. And the way mental models work is sometimes it's hard to see what our mental model is of certain things until it gets surfaced. And when we see a light crowd, maybe it'll get surfaced. Because if our mental model of church is that it's supposed to be a place, a certain location, where the largest possible number of people gather, if that's our mental model of church, then when we see that light crowd, we might get very uncomfortable. However, if our mental model of church is this close fellowship of disciples who are engaged with God in God's ongoing mission in the world, then we have a different impression of what Sunday attendance means. Sunday attendance is really important and formational, and it's a place where we connect with one another, and it's like a home place where we get recentered on Christ and go back out in the world. All that's really important, and if we really believe if we really have a mental model of church as this fellowship of disciples who are joining with God in God's ongoing mission in the world, then man, yeah, we want to bless those 9 people going down to the World Renew, and we want to bless people going here and there, and we want to be about more than just like, hey, how many people showed up on Sunday morning? We might be measuring the wrong things if we're just measuring that. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I think we should be all about trying to invite people to church life, and sometimes the sort of front door of church life is the Sunday morning experience. Sometimes it's a small group. Sometimes it's the website, whatever. But a lot of times it is that initial experience of Sunday morning. And I think we should be encouraged by the number of people who have been showing up the last 6 months and joining in what we're trying to do around here, and been encouraged by that. And along those lines, I want you to listen to this testimony from somebody who started coming about 6 months ago, who totally unprompted wrote this. Said, we have greatly appreciated the ways in which the congregation has been welcoming and so hospitable to those who are outside this community. When we leave Sunday mornings, we often comment on how so many people are eager to come and introduce themselves and say good morning, which is huge. Like, it's not just like that you're hospitable and welcome, like opening yourself up and want to get to know the people. We have loved having our children not only attend church with us, but be openly welcomed and encouraged, if they so choose, to stay and participate with the congregation at large. It appears to us that the service is designed to disciple and form everyone, not just adults, but even the youngest believers in the congregation. I'm like, thank you. You're having that experience, and thank you for relaying it to us, and I hope you're encouraged by that. And so I say that to encourage you in the realm of hospitality, just that you're doing a great job. I'm really proud to be part of this church and all the ways in which people not only do it in a superficial way of welcoming people, but really start opening themselves up to others. Here's another request. If you want to be part of the formal work in hospitality, we have a special meeting coming up January 28th for all adults in the sanctuary. It's going to include the welcome team, the security team, and the hospitality team, i.e. coffee and cookies. And all 3 of those teams getting together. And so if you want to be part of some of that stuff, which would be great, come on out to that experience. But yes, let's keep opening up our hearts, and in the midst of it, encouraging us about hospitality. Here's another thing that I want to stress. So much of the work of the Lord is this: invitation. Invitation. Invitation to events, invitation into relationship, invitation into community, invitation to get to know God, invitation into a relationship with Jesus Christ. Like, so much of what it means to be a witness in the world is about inviting people into our lives, into relationship with God, into community, into events, all that sort of things. And so with that in mind, I just want to encourage us to keep becoming better and better inviters. We had all sorts of good events this past fall, and myself and others did not do a good enough job of really stressing, hey, invite people to these events. And we can do better about that. And some of you are already good at inviting people. You just naturally do that. I hope you just completely keep doing that, and that it becomes contagious in a way all around the whole church. And that, we just keep inviting people into the stuff that we're about. So good natural transition to, I want to draw some attention in this State of the Church kind of address to some of the opportunities and events that we have had. I want to celebrate what happened this past fall, whether that be Family Fun Day at the OC Farm, which was a really fun little event. We had Trunk or Treat here in the parking lot, and we had a ton of people from our own church show up to that event, 150 plus, and a bunch of people from the community show up to that event. And we really do it well. The other people who come from other events and they're like, we went to other trunk or treats. Yours is the best one. And we can do even more in terms of our witness during that time and in terms of our community building during that time. But I'm just so happy so many of you engage it so well and are so creative in the outfits that you wear and everything else. It's a great way to celebrate community and kids and candy and Christ. We can do that too. So it was really fun. And it was also really fun to do cocoa and caroling. Andrea did a great job organizing us into different groups to go to those different facilities and do that. I wish we could have done it like every Sunday in December, go to different facilities and sing, or go to different people's houses and sing. So good little intergenerational community events. So thank you to the OCs for putting that on. Thank you to Andrea for putting on some of these other events. So man, there's something intangible that's built when we do some of those kinds of things together. And of course, when we get the chance to serve together at places like Safe Harbor. So thank you for so many of you who are coming out to that. But I'll get back to Safe Harbor in a moment. I also want to talk about some of other intergenerational events coming up. One of which is tubing. We're trying to nail down some more details about that, so I don't have it completely for you yet, but more info will be coming very soon about tubing, which we've done every winter, the last couple winters. And so look out for details about that and come be a part of it. I'm just really grateful too about the ways in which community is built through winter weekend kind of trips. So if you didn't recognize it, there was about 15 high schoolers that went on a trip back in December, and now middle schoolers are going here at the end of January. They're going down to Timberwolf Lake Lodge. I'm getting it wrong. Anyway, they're going, and so there's a cool intergenerational thing that happens there because our leaders are a part of it. The leaders with Sam and others. So be on the lookout for that so that you can pray for them and what they got going on. And speaking of community events, I feel like let's make sure we invite people to things like the Tenebrae service that will be coming up a little later this spring. So Easter's March 31st. Tenebrae will be March 29th. I know it's during spring break. Some people will not be around. But man, I feel like that's such a powerful service every time. And it's a place to invite people into a different way of seeing what this Christianity thing is all about. And seeing the power of the passion of Christ. So something to think about. And then, of course, when it comes to community events and intergenerational events, that 75th anniversary that I mentioned earlier. So those are just some things that I wanted to bring up. And in conjunction with those things, I want to think a little bit about that outreach opportunity. We've got another Safe Harbor thing coming up. So starting Saturday, February 17th and working all the way through into Friday the 23rd, and maybe even to Saturday morning the 24th, we will be serving. And here's the thing, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we have more and more people going south for the winter. We have 9 people going to Sarasota with World Renew. These are people who serve at Safe Harbor. And so we're going to need some of the rest of us to serve in a different way. Maybe sign up for an extra slot when we didn't think we were going to, or maybe lead a meal when we've never done that before. We could use some help from everybody. So you'll be on the lookout. Rhonda Stevens and I are coming for you in a good way. It is a privilege to be able to serve at Safe Harbor. It is a privilege to be able to, in every way possible, participate with God, some of which happens at Safe Harbor, some of which happens at your workplace, at your home, in your neighborhood. But this is one of the places where we can serve those who really do need some help from the entire community, including those of us who get to be the hands and feet of Jesus through Safe Harbor. So all that to say, we're going to be making a push for that soon, and so I hope that you'll participate. And along those lines of kind of, I'm getting ahead of myself. I wanted to say something else about not just those intergenerational community events and outreach and the ways in which we serve through Safe Harbor, but also wanted to talk for just a moment in terms of this state of the church kind of thing about what's happening relative to discipleship. So I mentioned some things before about the learning hour. One of the exciting things that happened this past week, not just happened, but started this past week, is that there's a youth profession of faith class that Sam Javid is leading. And so they started this past week, and they'll be going through the middle of March and then have a little break there for spring break and Easter, and then professing their faith Sunday, April the 7th, before the congregation, those that complete the process. Right now there were 6 students, I think, this past Sunday, and there could be up to 12 that end up participating. So be mindful of them, be praying for them, be praying for Sam, be praying for other leaders who are a part of that, and be praying, for all those youth and what it means to really claim the promises that were declared over them in their baptism, to receive God's grace in such a way that they don't have to have anything figured out yet, except that, oh, God loves me, and I want to love God and serve God in return. That's it. They don't have to have anything else figured out. But hey, let's get this started and profess our faith out loud, a la Romans 10. So that's happening. I also want to, from a big picture perspective, bring some attention to Kingdom Journey. That's a spiritual formation movement that exists within our body. And the Pilgrim process, well, let me say this. It's spiritual formation along the lines of kind of 2 threads, 2 tracks. And that's because when we're made in the image of God, God created us in his image. And in that way, we're created for relationship and responsibility. That is kind of relationship with God, self, and others, and responsibility of being a part of God's mission in the world and God's ongoing mission. God is up to things way before we're up to things. We just get to join God in that mission. And so, along those lines, then, Kingdom Journey has kind of 2 processes related to that. Pilgrim is related to relationships. Adventurer is related to mission. And we had a dozen people go through Pilgrim this past year from April through to October. And we're going to be offering it again this April, the end of April. So you might contemplate getting involved. I just want to say a few brief things about that. Sometimes people don't want to get involved because they sense that Pilgrim is largely about sort of dragging up the past. And a lot of people say, hey, I've already put the past in the past. It's okay. Well, here's what I want to say about that. Pilgrim is not entirely about dragging things up from the past. It is about formation. We have been formed by another of many, many things that have brought us to this day. Some of those things have to do with our past. And so some ways we take a look at that stuff. How did that stuff form us? Did it form us in a way that honors God so that we are people who are made into God's image in a helpful way? Or did it malform us and we need to be reformed? And so, sometimes we look at that stuff. And sometimes, be honest with yourself, you say you put it in the past, but it keeps showing up in the present. The Pilgrim's the kind of thing that you can take care of that. But ultimately, we don't need everybody who's part of Pilgrim to drag up the past. What we want to ask is, in this present moment, with your current level of formation, can you identify the obstacles that are standing in the way of you fully living into God's design for your life? Can you identify them? And do you have the proper tools and resources and people and the connection to the Holy Spirit in your life so that you can overcome those obstacles and live more fully into who God created you to be? That's really the premise behind Pilgrim. Taking a good look at the stuff that stands in the way of us following Jesus more closely, more clearly, more intimately, and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to follow Jesus more intimately, come be a part of Pilgrim. That's my pitch for it. But that starts again in late April. As I mentioned, there's another thing called Adventurer that is about engaging in responsibility for the world, being involved in God's ongoing work in the world, and lots of you are already doing that in spades. One of the reasons we create an Adventurer class is because we want to help those of us who need more of a push to be involved in it, in God's work in the world. And we know that no matter where we're involved in God's work in the world, whether it's where we live, work, or play, that it's hard work. And we need a community of people who are helping us with that hard work. It's hard work when we try to go out on faith and do something for God, and we seem to fall on our face or it goes poorly. We need a community to come back to and say, hey, this is how this went. What am I supposed to make of this? That's what Adventure is about. It's about having the community there that not only serves as a source of accountability, like how are you giving yourself to God's mission in the world, but also serves as a source of support. Like, hey, here, this is something that's going to help you. Hey, let's talk about it, and we can give you some good feedback about what God seems to be up to in your life, etc., etc. So that started a little while ago. There's still time to be a part of it. You could contact me. But we're getting that thing rolling. And then starting this week, maybe even the day that this video is distributed, is our guide class, which is all about training coaches, because both in the Pilgrim process and the Adventurer process, we need coaches, because in all of life, we need coaches. What do coaches do? Not just like a sporting coach, like a basketball coach or volleyball coach. When we are thinking about coaches, mostly what we're thinking about is people who can listen really well and ask really good questions so that the person who's describing what's going on in their life can get more present to what the Spirit is doing in that moment. It's a little bit different than, spiritual direction. It's a little different than spiritual direction. It's a lot like discipleship. It's a lot like, but it doesn't always have this sort of mentor-mentee kind of dynamic. Sometimes it's peer-to-peer coaching, just asking good questions, listening really well so this person can see more clearly what God is up to in their lives. We want to create a coaching culture around here so that when we get stuck, when we're trying to figure out how to live as God would have us live, loving God and loving others and loving ourselves and trying to be joining with God and God's ongoing mission in the world, when we get stuck in certain spots, that we reach out and say, man, I could really use some coaching around that. And then whoever we reach out to has the capacity to listen well and ask really good questions so that we can make progress in the world. We need each other in that way. And so that's why we're doing Guide. We wish we could train even more coaches. I want to just continue rallying around that. I want everybody. If it was up to me, I would love to just force everybody to go through Pilgrim and Adventurer and Guide. I'm not going to force you. Obviously, that'd be crazy and kind of cult-like. But I really want to encourage you to be a part of those things. So yeah, and another thing that's happening related to discipleship is that I am distributing these newsletters, which hopefully you've paid attention to. I've got about 115 people subscribed to the one and about 35 to the other, but one of them is related to Kingdom Journey, and it's designed specifically for people who are alumni of the Pilgrim process to help keep their transformation alive. So that's distributed every other week. And in the other weeks, I'm distributing something that's for the whole congregation. You're welcome to sign up for both of them. Even if you haven't been a part of Pilgrim, you'll have trouble understanding some of the references, but you still might find it valuable. It's out there, kingdomjourney.substack.com. The regular newsletter is drewpoppleton.substack.com. And I've gotten some real positive feedback about that. I'm really enjoying being able to aggregate some things and send them out in terms of resources, in terms of other things to access that will help you in your own walk with Christ. And specifically with the Pilgrim newsletter, a lot of times kind of like some homework, some things to reflect upon, some things to do. And so those are things that are happening. It's just another way for me to share some of the things that are helping to form me that might be helpful to form you too. Or maybe they're just stirring my heart at the time, like an interview with Rick Rubin. Anyway, so those are things that are happening. In terms of this State of the Church address, I also, as I said at the beginning, want to talk a little bit about what's happening on campus. Always just proud to say that we are partnering with so many different ministries, whether that be Single Mom through the house there on Anderson Road, or whether it be Keys to Freedom, Love Thy Neighbor, NA. We also host Young Life meetings. Teen CBS is here on Monday nights. CBS, the regular part, is here on Monday mornings, the leaders. Tuesday mornings, the whole group of over 200 women. So all sorts of partnerships, and we're growing into more partnerships. So we recently at least made an agreement. It still has yet to be sort of formalized and materialized, but an agreement with Love for a Child, which is a ministry for foster children, the ones that are most unlikely to be fostered and adopted in the system. And it's a ministry to them. They're going to make use of Lake Ann Camp, I think, in order to have a camp for those kids. And they want a central office up here in northern Michigan to help do their work. And we said, hey, we would be glad to partner with you in having an office space. We also formed a partnership with Tricia Novak, who started a counseling service, Still Shores Counseling. And so she has started that up, and she is meeting in the Family Life Center and taking on clients. So if you know somebody that you can look her up, Still Shores Counseling online. And along those same lines, in the similar generation, Jesse Kelly runs Hope Counseling for kids who are ages 3 through 11. We're not hosting Jesse in terms of an office space right now on the campus, but just want to let you know that we've got those partnerships going for Love for a Child and with Still Shores Counseling with Tricia Novak. And in fact, part of the partnership with Tricia Novak is 5 hours a month for pro bono for church referrals. So if you happen to need some counseling, come and see us as pastors first. She will only take referrals from the pastors to her counseling services. So just some things that are happening, just some awesome stuff, though, to be able to partner with so many different ministries here on the campus. And speaking of the campus, I think it's worth celebrating yet again some different ways that it was beautified in the fall and some things coming up here in the spring. So first of all, many thanks to Mike Novak to helping to work on the new logo. There was other people that helped contribute to that process, whether that be Liz Ledke, Elizabeth Anderson, Andrea, Drew, me, probably not mentioning somebody I should be mentioning. But so we worked on that. And then Dave and Suzanne and Andrea and Jonathan all helped put together the stonework that's outside. And all the kids got to paint those rocks. And we're learning how to maintain that rock version of the logo, but certainly a beautiful part of what's going on around campus. Want to give a shout out to, many years, Stephanie did a great job keeping things beautiful around the sanctuary and surrounding elements, and we have yet to really figure out how we're going to transition into that during this transition time. But many thanks to Donna DeBoer and all the other ladies that helped her to decorate for Christmas. Donna's been doing that for years and years and years and years. And with Stephanie's departure, she, I think, felt like it was a good time for her to say, hey, I've been doing this long enough. I need somebody else to help step up. So we are looking for other people who would love to help beautify what's happening in the sanctuary and in the fellowship area and what's going on around there. But speaking of beautification, we are thinking about having a professional artist named Joel Schoon Tanis help us make a giant mural on the exterior part of the intersection building. So as you know, the corner of Front and Garfield is the most traveled intersection in Grand Traverse County, and it is about to get totally revamped in March through June. And we would love to take that intersection building, which right now is kind of boring and has this non-functional electronic sign, and have it look beautiful and have it reflective of not only TC, but also reflective of God's intentions in the world and what's happening at Faith Reformed Church. And there's just a ton of potential around it. I'll include a little link you can follow along. But Joel is a professional artist out of Holland. He's an artist in residence at Third Reformed Church down there. And he's coming up on February the 4th, and he's going to lead a conversation during the learning hour about faith and art. And I would love as many adults as possible to come to be a part of that. If they're a teenager that's not a part of the Profession of Faith class, or even if you are, maybe I should talk with Sam about that. But it's going to be a great conversation about faith and art and dive into a little bit of the potential of what Joel could do to help us beautify those walls of that building in such a way that really provides an amazing, I think, could provide an amazing witness to the community. But it's all about just another way in which we're beautifying the campus for the sake of God's glory. And so February 4th, come out to that. Speaking of beautification, Drew Peterson has worked in a really assiduous way. Ooh, big SAT word, assiduous. He has worked in that way to replace all the signage around our worship center building and around our campus, and including a new sign by the road, which sorely needed it. And so many thanks to Drew Peterson for all the work he did around that and working with Pro Image to bring that about. And then many thanks to Dave and Sally Meyer, who gave great gifts to help bring that signage about. So, man, awesome. Speaking of generosity, I do want to let you know that we recently received a massive gift from somebody, a former attender of our church who never became a full member, a guy named Bill Garrettson, who is the brother of Ruth Lamper. A lot of people know Chuck and Ruth. Bill came around for quite a long time as a part of our church. The last couple of years has not been able to attend as frequently, especially when Chuck and Ruth moved to Grand Rapids. But when he died, he left us a significant gift of over $760,000, which we are trying to figure out how to use for the sake of God's glory. So you'll see some things about that in the very near future, because we got a couple mission opportunities that we want to really bless our missionaries with. But in general, man, what a powerful gift that he left to us, that we would maybe steward for the sake of God's glory, which also just gives us the chance to, continue dreaming. We shouldn't wait to dream when money comes around. Sometimes dreams attract the money, right? But we need to keep dreaming about what else we can do with this campus and what else we can do to glorify God, and not just have that money sort of support our general fund. So that's not permission for everybody to stop giving right now. We're going to still using our regular tithes and offerings to support the general ministry around here, and figure out what to do with some of this other money that we're accumulating and should be used for the sake of God's glory. Bill didn't leave it to us so that we would squander it, right? So, and speaking of financial, just as a state of the church kind of thing, I should give you a little financial update, and that's just to say that we are halfway through our fiscal year. Our fiscal year revolves around July 1st, not January 1st. But we are $60,000 to the good, which is a good thing because winter months tend to be the leanest months. We usually have a buffer at the end of December. So this is not an abnormal, man, we're doing really great and you should relax your giving. It's not like that at all. But it is certainly a positive thing. So just want to give you that financial update. And we'll be heading into the new year trying to figure out new budget and start having nominations for elder and deacon. So you'll start seeing that soon. So you might want to think about who you want to nominate for elder and deacon starting in July, but we'll select them here this spring. So that's about all I've got for you. That's a lot, about 45 minutes worth. So thank you if you stuck with me all the way. You are amazing. Thank you for being so invested in Faith Reformed Church. And that's what I want to leave you with. Continue to invest. Just like you invest in anything that you want to love, what does it look like to invest? Not just financially. I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about investing ideas. I'm talking investing time and effort. I'm talking about, how else can you invest your heart into what you believe in about what's happening around Faith Reformed Church? How else can you invest in that way? And then also, how can you act like owners? That's a phrase that I use a lot with staff and consistory. Like, don't wait for me to initiate. I've got my head going and my body going in a lot of different directions. Sometimes you got to initiate, and you can act like an owner around here by initiating. I just love that phrase, act like owner, because ultimately we are all owners of what's happening around here. We're not the head of the church. Christ is the head of the church, but we all get to act like owners around here. So I'll just leave you with that. Thank you very much. And again, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to contact me, reach out, or reach out to other staff members, Andrea, Drew, Sam, Cheyenne, Vicky, Jonathan. Reach out to other leaders who are on the consistory, elders and deacons. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't just harbor resentment about something or keep something to yourself. Be curious, ask about it. Don't make too many assumptions. Be curious. Ask questions first. And there might be good explanations, because nobody's trying to be malicious or irresponsible around here. We're trying to do the right things all the time. Let's keep it up. Thank you. The Lord bless you and keep you.